Welcome back. Today, let's talk about the single responsibility principle. We'll go deep dive into that, and also we'll see how to implement the single responsibility principle (SRP) using a Golang. So, single responsibility is states that a class or a module have only one reason to change, meaning it should have only one job or responsibility. Okay. In the context of Go, there are no classes here, right? So, how we can do that? So SRP still applies like functions, types, and interfaces. We will use these things to make it uh, the support of solid principles. That is the first one, single responsibility principle. So we need to take the Golang simplicity. It's a like Golang simplicity really aligns for the SRP. It encourages a clear, straightforward design where each component has a well-defined responsibility, uh, basically like a single responsibility for anything actually as either component or a function or class like that. So in Golang, right, package level design like in Go, like a responsibility are often defined at the package level. Okay, for example, you are taking mathematics package math, it's just like mathematics related stuff. And also like package should give the functionalities, and each package should have a single and clear purpose. We'll see those things as well. So in Go, actually like functions as a units of work. Basically, a Golang supports or suggests the small and focused functions. Each function should perform any specific tasks. Okay, contributing to the overall responsibility of your package. Basically, in the package, these functions will have the only single task, also focused task. So that is how actually we'll define the functions. Interfaces and composition is in Golang, like interfaces and composition allows for building modular and extendable code. Interfaces construct and composition enables combining simple components to achieve a more complex behaviors. Basically, we will split the complex program into small pieces of small responsibilities using interface and composition. And implementation uh, things what we can take care during a single responsible implementation. For example, right, package structure, for example, organize the code into packages that reflects a single responsibility. For example, separate package for handling HTTP request, database interaction, or authentication, or business logic. So we can make it as a separate package. Functionality in functions, this we already discussed. Ensure that functions within the package have a clear and singular purpose. Break down the complex task into smaller and focused functions. This we already discussed in the previous slide. So interface design as well. So we need to design interface in such a way that the contrast between the components and the interfaces. Each interface should represent a single responsibility, making it easier to substitute implementations. Composition. The compose functionality by combining smaller components. This promotes a modular design where each component maintains a single responsibility. Testing as well. Golang testing framework facilitates the creation of focused unit test cases that each function or a method independently ensuring that it is others to its intended responsibility. Okay. This is about the theoretically to understand the single responsibility. Basically, we are giving the single purpose or single responsibility for each function, the package level, interface level, composition level, and so on. Now let's come to the coding part, how we can take it. Here I will take one example of how we can implement a user authentication small system using the single responsibility using the Golang. Okay. So I just created, let us see this. So here what we will do is I will try to create one folder with name SRP. Okay, so I will create a main method, main.go, or let me write, for example, we'll take like, we'll try to create, let me try to write the go. So here what we will do is I am trying to uh, create a the user authentication system, basically user management. Okay, how to authenticate and all. So for that, what we will do is I will take a package SRP, also fine. Now what we will do is I will try to create a user struct that represent a user in the system. So the structure looks like this actually. Okay, type user struct. We'll just take two things now. One is username, it will be string, and also password. Okay, so this particular structure responsibility is to just to hold the user name and password. That's it, nothing else. And also we will create one more structure to give the user repository to just handle the user operations. Okay, so what I'm saying is we'll try to create user repository which handles user management operations. Okay, so what we will do is type user repository struct, and which just users, we just uh, users user. That's it. There nothing. We are not complicating anything. We are giving just responsibility, single responsibility for this one. Okay. So after creating this thing, we will try to create the new user repository, which actually just creates the uh, user repository. That's it. Okay. How to do that is write one new function which will be creating new user, new repository. Okay, which will return user repository. Okay, this will just return user repository of users. Okay, so we will make the users slice. We will just inslice this. Okay, so basically what we are doing here is we are trying to create a uh, uh, initialization. Okay, initialization of new user repository. Okay, okay, sorry. Okay, fine. So we are giving this as a single responsibility or single operation, that is just create a new user repository. That's it. Now let's go back. Once we create the new repository, try to add a new function for the user repository to add a new user. Okay, how to do that? Um, okay, add user. We will add a method. Okay, which actually adds a new user to the repository. Okay, for this what we can do is func We are just user repository add user, which actually takes user of struct user. Okay, now, okay, so now what we will do is we will try to add ur dot users equal to, we'll use append function per user, uh, and we'll try to use the user. So this is the simple functionality. We are simply adding the new user to the repository. Okay. Okay, cool. So now what we will do is we will try to create a authentication service. So this one actually, so what we did now is we created a user repository, we created a new user repository which actually create a user repository, and we are just adding to the users to the user repository. So now what as we discussed, right, we will try to do the authentication service, right? So now what I will try to do here is I will try to implement a mm, I'll try to implement a authentication service. Okay, this is also like a single responsibility for that authentication service, which actually handles user authentication operations. Okay, so what I will do now is type type authentication service struct. So what we will do is you try to implement the user repository of type user repository. Okay, okay, cool. So once we are done with this, so what we will do now is similar to like new user repository, whatever way you created, let's create the same thing here also. So create a new authentication service just to initialize, right? Is a new authentication service. Okay, so what we will do is new authentication service. What it will take is it will take the user repository of type user repository, and it will return the authentication service, right? So we will simply return here address of authentication service, user authentication of user repository of user repository. Okay, so we are done with the basic um, creations. Let's have a authentication uh, authenticate user. What and all we need here? uh, Authenticate user has a single again responsibility of just authenticating. To authenticate a user based on provided credentials, right? Okay, let us write a function of authentication service, that is authenticate user. The function name will be authenticate user, and it will take username and password um, of type strings, right? Once we are done with this, we'll return two things here. Basically, one is bool, that is user is authenticated or not, or error. Okay. So now what we will do is we will try to get the user with username, right? So what we will do is user. This is just authenticating user, right? We will write one more helper function with one responsibility, just to get a user. Okay. Assume that there is a function dot sorry get user by username. We'll pass the username. Okay. So once we get this user, what we will do is we'll check if error is not equal to nil. That means we received a user. We are not received a user. We will return false on error. Okay. Otherwise, what we will do is we'll try to verify the user dot password password equal to password whatever we received, and then error will be nil. Okay. Okay. So this is the actually the this is the actually we will authenticate the user with a single responsibility for this particular function. Okay. So now what we will do is we'll try to write this function get user by username. Just retrieves a user from the repository, right? Repository. Okay. Retrieves. Okay. So what we will do now is func. This is also comes under authenticate service. Authenticate service. Get user by name. Username of string. Return user, error. Okay. So what we will do now here is we will just try to check the users from the users of authenticate service user repository users, and we'll try to check if user dot username equal to whatever username we received here. Once we found this, we just return user command nil. Otherwise, what we need to do is we need to return empty user. Okay, empty user, and also we can return the errors dot error new. We'll try to return user not found. Okay. So this you observe here we are just giving the single responsibility for the authentication service, also user repository service, and we are dividing authentication single responsibility here. Here also single responsibility, just get a user by name, right? So let us see this how we can implement our main function. Func main. So what we will do now is we'll try to create a user repository first. Okay, create a user repository. How we can create that? We have already user repository equal to new user repository, which will take nothing actually. We are done with this, right? After that, what we will do, we will try to create a user. Okay, we'll create a user with username, assuming that I will give my name, and password could be, I will give password only, secure password. Okay, so this user I have added. Now what we will do is we'll try to call the user repository and add user, and we'll pass this user. Okay, so if you observe that we are giving single operations and single responsibilities for each of things. Now let us create a authentication service. Now create a authentication service. Okay, uh, authentication service for the authentication service for the user repository, whatever you created. Okay, so now how we can do that auth service. This is actually we have already helper function auth service, and we'll try to pass the user repository, right? Now let us try to validate this one. We will try to attempt to authenticate user now. Let us create a username. I will create same name, Sivaprasad, whatever I give. Okay, and password. Password also I will give secure password. Okay, so okay, so now I have given the same names here. Let us verify this our using our authenticator. Okay, um, uh, comma error will use auth service dot authenticate user by passing username and password. Okay, fine. Okay, now what I will try to do here is I will just check if error is not equal to nil. That means there is a problem, right? I will try to print the error authentication failed. Authentication failed, right? So otherwise, one this authentication failed, nothing to do anything here, just returning from here. Otherwise, what if is authenticated? Yes, uh, we'll try to implement like with yeah. So println welcome to the. We will try to welcome the user. Okay, okay. User, sorry, username whatever we passed. Else, what we will do is we'll try to println invalid credential. Okay. So this is the overall thing. Sorry, service. So let us run this code and see how we can try to do this with the initial execution of this. Okay, cd single SRP, single responsible principal, go run main.go. Okay, okay. Yeah, if you observe that we already taken care everything. Let us see like what and all we did here. So what we did here is we try to create a user for holding username and password. We created a new structure for the user repository, which actually taking the single responsibility to handle operations on a user, right? And also we have created a new function which actually creates a new repository. Okay. And also we have given the single responsibility or single operation in the user repository function called add function, which simply adds a new user to the repository. And we created new service called authentication service, which actually handles only authentication operations like a authenticate user. That is the only operation we're exposing outside, but internally we are writing a other method to get users by username. Maybe if you add id tomorrow by user by id like that. So here actually we new authentication, we are creating the authentication service using this method, new authenticate service, and also authenticate user. This is also the method which actually validates the user credentials and returns either true or error. And also we wrote one support function just to get the username from the repository. And if the username not found, we'll just try to return the error and with empty user. In the main function, actually we are creating the user repository with the new user repository, and we created user and we added that user into user repository. We created authenticate server service by passing the user repository to that. We are authenticating that. We are validating the things here. So here actually what we can do is we can refactor the things actually here. Okay. Let us write one more function, one more file called user.go. Okay. So what I will do here is I will try to move this user to this particular file. We're just refactoring the code uh, just to make sure package SRP. Okay. And so next what we are doing is we will try to uh, yeah. So what we will do is we'll try to move this also to user. Okay. And what other thing what we can do is we can try to authenticate service. We'll write authenticate. So here package SRP. So now what I will try to do here is I will try to move these things, authentication stuff there. Okay. And let us move these things also here actually. Okay. So now what we will do is we'll try to import SRP here. what it is saying. Okay. Okay, let us make it main only for now. Okay. So now if you see, right, we refactor the code very organized way now. Now the why I refactor this code here is we need to make sure that if any changes in the user related stuff, for example, tomorrow I want to add ID to this, I don't want to do any changes in the other places. I just want to do the changes only here, this file. Similarly, any authentication changes, tomorrow I will add authentication with two-factor authentication or something like that. I don't want to do any changes. That is the beauty of single responsibility and the refactoring the code here. Let us run and see this what happens. Go run main.go. Okay, undefined new repository in main.go. Why like that? Okay, package main dot main dot where is user here? Yeah, user. Yep. Main dot. Okay, let me run now. Go run main dot go. Undefined function, no field method, new repository. 25. User is not. Okay, why this is happening? Let me. So yeah, as we discussed, like we modularized or refactor the code. Now let us build a code. Let us build the code. So this will generate a srp.exe, which actually includes all the files here. Okay. So now if I run this one, so it will authenticate actually, right? It is authenticated the main function, main method here. So now let me give the wrong name here. For example, I will give the wrong name, maybe Shiva. Let us see like how it works now. Now go build, I will give, try to build it and it will generate a new thing here. I'll try to give the srpxe. See, it is authentication fail, user not found, right? So that is uh, main the discussion about the single responsibility principle, and by refactoring the code everything we are done here, we reached here. Okay, I hope this will be helpful. Using Golang, how we can implement the single responsibility principle by using structs and also interfaces, how we can give the single responsibility for the interfaces, as we discussed, like a authentication service and also here repository service and so on. Still you can refactor if you want by making the things, these things will be in the separate file, and in case of authentication you can move the 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 implementation of authentication service to the new file like that. But for now let it be like this, and yeah, that's it. I think I will share you these things, the code also, like how it is